So it's a real issue. And our Dean of the Faculty of Computing and Engineering, Lisa Looney, did some research, and she was the first time I've ever seen it, where she tracked how many young women have the text or the STEM subjects and then go into the Leaving Cert, and what are they doing? Are they picking the tech careers? And what she found was that when young women don't know what to do, as in lack of role models, not sure about the topic or how it's relatable, they're picking arts. So they're going into arts, even though they have the right subjects on the Leaving Cert. So that's a whole other piece. So there's no one, it's very complex, and it's quite interesting for me coming from an industry and coming from tech and then going into higher education and really seeing some of these systemic issues kind of playing out then for people in third level. So so I think it's brilliant having, you know, organisations like KBC and like organisations like PwC wanting to get involved and wanting to drive this. It's really important, because there's no one answer in fixing this.
I'd like to also say that we have a lot of role models. That when I see role model for women in tech, I always see the same people all the time. Like you said, for the Facebooks. I think it's also important to have a role model. People feel connected somehow, who is maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead of them, not maybe 100 miles away from them. So, because once they see these role models, they will say, "Oh, she's she has done, she's a Wonder Woman, and she has completed a lot in in her life, but we can't be like her because she's so far away." So it's, I think, very important for us to show role models like people who are a little bit ahead of them, so that they can feel connected and they can feel easy to ask questions and approach to them as well.
We have a group in engineering called Fem Engineers, and it's young women who are in engineering, and they go out into the local schools. So we'd be connected to 22 DESH schools just because of the area that we're in. And they go out and they promote STEM careers. So they're only 2 steps ahead of the people that they're going out to. And that really makes a big difference, I think. But we need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to also mention about your initiatives as well. You started Diversity Center at DCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell more about that, please? Because it's only recently launched in June. I've seen the photos on the social media, like with you and Deborah. And
that's right.
So
we were famous for a day. That was all. It was only a day. That's all. You're lucky if you last that long on Twitter.
What is happening there, and how people can support this initiative?
So when I was in industry, I studied in DCU. I did a master's in organisational psychology, and that's how that translates for me is through my diversity and inclusion work. And it's always been on a voluntary basis. And when I was in industry, I used to go out and help organisations figure out around diversity and inclusion and share my personal experience of kind of setting it up, and because it was all voluntary led at that time. And when I moved into DCU, what happened is all these organisations were coming to me saying, "Sandra, can you help us with this? Can you do this?" And now it's my day job, and I have to do this for the university. So in rolling out and delivering on the strategy within the university, I found all of these academic experts who spend their lives studying diversity and inclusion, but the research is sitting on a shelf. It's not getting out there. And then we have industry out here saying, "Can you help us fix this?" So that's really where the idea of the centre came about. So I had to persuade Brian, our president, who I have to say is an absolutely fantastic man and a real trailblazer, particularly for women and women in STEM. He's amazing. And there wasn't much persuading, but I said, "Look, I think we need to formalise this. So create a way for people in industry to connect with the academic experts." So my role in this really is to, if you have a challenge in industry, I'll find the academic expert, we get industry to fund it, and it's really around creating toolkits and practice and things that can be implemented. So as we're starting to build a membership community through the centre, and the kind of ethos is we create it with one organisation, but then we deliver it out, it's available to everybody. So it really is, it's around all boats rise. So one of the projects actually, it kind of ties into some of the things we were talking about earlier. is looking at self-disclosure. So how can we have a truly inclusive environment in the workplace where we encourage people to self-disclose? Now that could be a hidden disability, it could be family status, it could be socioeconomic background, it could be anything. But we have, you know, people coming into work every day, it could be their marriage is broken up, anything. And the workplaces are not supporting people. So what do we need to do around creating an environment where people feel like it's okay to come in and talk about what's going on in their lives and make sure that the organisation is going to support them when they do disclose. So we have, it's a global company, I can't say their name yet because we haven't signed it's nearly there. And what we're looking at doing is creating, there's two aspects of hidden disability. So one, we're looking at neurodiversity, and we're looking at creating a toolkit and a set of best practice for organisations from an environmental accommodations perspective. But then what are the nice to have? And we're working with groups like As I Am and the Employer Disability Information Services to create toolkits. So if you want to introduce disability, and I know we're going to rope in rehab, and I was out with James there, and just to start to kind of tie that up. And essentially what it will be a pack that you'll be able to pick up, take into your HR department or your CSR or wherever and say, look, this has been produced with the academics, it's been tried and tested in 3 or 4 other organisations, why don't we do this? And the other aspect then is around hidden disability. So how can we encourage people, you know, maybe, you know, going through a bad time from a mental health perspective or whatever, what do you do when somebody comes in and has that conversation with you? How can you make sure that they're supported in the organisation? And I describe that as, you know, we're all human, right? We all have speed bumps. You've 8 hours to sleep, 8 hours to live, and 8 hours to work, right? And there's no way you're going to get through your life without something happening that's going to impact either your work or your life and your sleep. So we're not in the business of breaking people. So what is it we can do to encourage employers to support us as humans through every aspect of our lives? So the centre is there, it's around, my job is you come to me with something you want to work on and I'll find the academic, connect the two of you together and we produce something that's available then for everybody, and as I said, all boats rise.
It sounds amazing, to be honest. We must definitely connect and talk about that later on, how we can compare it together with diverse and diversity centre at DCU.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I think it's time now, I think, in Ireland for a cultural advisory group, and it doesn't exist. And where I've seen this work really well is, some of you may be familiar with Headstrong. Do you know Headstrong, the young people's mental health? For years they have had a young people's advisory board that the government use and other charities would use. So when they want to get a young people's perspective into policy or whatever's being developed, they go to that group. It's an advisory group. Why don't we have that from a cultural perspective? And that's what I'm thinking. We can collaborate, we can build that, and actually Deborah and I have been talking about it. We're meeting each other next week. But why don't we put that together so that we're creating a safe place for people to come and have a difficult conversation sometimes around culture. And I think from an academic institution we have a real opportunity to support that conversation. So yeah, we have lots of work to do together.
Very good, very good, brilliant. And Amanda, you also started an initiative called Becoming an IT Girl.
Yeah, become an IT girl.
And you also have been in a group of academics who are looking for ways to improve number of females, female numbers in the tech courses. So could you also share more about what is your becoming IT girl? What do you do there, and how can people support it?
Yeah. Okay. So as Furkan said, it's the Become an IT Girl initiative. It Girl traditionally meant something completely different to me. I wasn't a big fan, so I'm kind of trying to turn it on its head slightly. Anyway, look, I wish I could say I worked as part of a centre or something, but I am just a computer science lecturer who's really interested in this area. I don't get support from my department in terms of given hours or anything. It's just stuff I do on top of my day-to-day teaching because I'm really interested. And because of that, I suppose you're limited in what you can do. But what I've been focusing on is trying to bring in second level girls from schools all around the country and bringing in female role models from industry. And I've tried to get in CEOs, and I've gotten in recent graduates who are doing, I try and get such diversity in there. The recent graduates are the ones I find the girls are most interested in. We had a girl who's in Microsoft who's a boxer. From her class, we had another girl who is really interested in brand building and beauty and alternative therapies, and she wants to build websites for these people. So very different, very diverse kind of views. So the idea is I bring a couple of hundred of schoolgirls in at a time. I bring in these role models. I give everyone a chance to talk about how they moved into tech, how they got there, why they love it, why they think it's a good career choice. And then I take the girls into smaller groups and I bring them off to the labs, and we do maybe app development, Python, development with microbits, anything that's potentially on the new computer science course, we will give them some training in. So it's to give them a taster. But like you say, they do veer towards the more meaningful roles. Education, accessibility. They have a natural veer towards that. Now, also as part of this Become an It Girl initiative, I've built up a lot of connections within the bigger tech companies. They have a lot of money to spend. What they're doing to try and help me out is they're opening up their office space to actually bring girls in, DESH schools, locals, whatever it is, and actually let them look at some of their tech and give them talks and coding sessions and whatever. So the big tech companies, I have to say, have been really, really supportive of me. While I've been, amassing this network, they now send me information about events they're running. I push them out to my students. I also push them out to second level. It's quite amazing how many teachers at second level just have no links with industry whatsoever. And they want to hear about this stuff happening. And if they know a tech company will send a bus and bring a gang of their students into their offices, they will jump on that, but they're just not aware of the information. So a lot of actually what I do day to day is actually about just putting the information out to second level. Now, you mentioned the group of academics. So last May or June, a group of lecturers from all around the country tried to get together in DIT to talk about specifically the gender issue, okay, because our numbers are so appalling. And a couple of things came out of that. We didn't want to give ourselves a name that said gender because we didn't want to, because it's bigger than that. It's actually, it's more than that. We didn't want to alienate people. But also, at second level, kids' minds are made up younger than that. Primary school. So we're looking at initiatives for primary schools to start introducing STEM earlier. The idea of it. What was your quote, that girls are brought up to be perfect and guys...
Boys
so
to be brave.
The teachers are telling me that by secondary they've decided it's too late then. So we're trying to look at this academic group. We're actually looking to try and see how can we come up with some programme for primary level as well. Now, interestingly, Adu, you said about doing something on Monday. Try do something on Monday to make a change, right? And I really believe in that, okay? So, as a year head, I made a decision quite a few years ago to be extremely honest with my students about my background. That if they were going to come to me with academic issues or issues at home or issues with work or falling behind, they had to believe that I was somewhere in around their level. We talked about that. So very early on, when I meet my second years, I discuss the fact that I come from a very working class background, from a very working class neighbourhood. First person in the family to go to college. I worked my way through college. So I'm trying to relate to them. I actually do understand where you're coming from. I discussed the fact that I left a university place because I perceived there to be a lack of socio-economic diversity within my group. There's nothing to do with the university or my group of friends. They're amazing. I had the imposter syndrome. I've been there. So I understand all that. So I'm very open with my students when they talk to me that I do understand where you're coming from, and I think that's really important. I think the role model issue it's so important, and the more role models we can get out there and all types of diversity, the absolute better for the rest of us. So
Yes.
yeah.
And I also believe that for for women, they would like to hear